Hello everybody, Evan here. I wanted to talk a little bit about two different concepts on a Moodle server, and these are a source of confusion for a lot of people when they get started. The two things are called authentication and then enrollment, and they're actually two different things, and they have different methods for each, and that's really the source of confusion. Authentication is simply how you log into the site. So it's your login for the site, and you have several different ways you can do it on our server, the statewide Moodle server. And one of the most common one is a manual login. That means we're going to go and create an account, or a teacher will create the account for the student. You have to have administrative permissions to go and make manual authentication. But one of the nice things about that is if you have quite a few students that you need to create, you can actually bulk upload those instead of having to make them one by one. There is another option called self-enrollment, and this would have the students create their own accounts on the site. Typically students don't do this, but sometimes teachers will do this. And then the third one, and this is probably the one that is most often used, is the Google login. When you go to our site, as we will in a second, you'll see a Google logo, and if you click on that to log in, it will use your Google username and password to log into the site. Now here's the thing, each one of those is a different authentication method, and it creates a different account. So if, for example, I went and I made a self account, I created a new account by myself, and then the next day I said, you know what, I want to log in with Google, and I do so, I've just actually made a second account. So that's one of the dangers about having multiple methods, is that it causes confusion, and you have two different accounts. If you're a teacher, one account is set up as a teacher and one isn't. And sometimes that's a good thing. You can use that second account to be a student, a mock student in the class. We do have some other authentication types. They're not often used. If you're a live at EDU school, that's a different one. We're also going to have a one-ring authentication coming out here sometime during the 2014-15 school year as well. Now enrollment's different. Enrollment is how you get into a course. And it's not enrollment that's set up in your student information system or by a registrar or something like that. It's just simply getting into the Moodle area within the site. And we've got two different ways we can do that. One is to manually enroll. That means the teacher goes in, searches from a list for the student, and puts them in herself. Otherwise, the student can self-enroll. Now, the manual enrollment is more accurate for the teacher. They can get for sure that the students are going to get in. However, the self-enrollment is easier. Having the students go and do it themselves saves the teacher some time, and it doesn't take very long to do. All right, we're going to take a look at the authentication and the enrollment on our Moodle site. And to do that, we're going to switch over to our browser. Here I am at the site. It's moodle.aeak12online.org, and again we've got several different logins here. If you read the section here, you'll see that if you don't have an account, it does say you need to create an account by clicking here. That takes you to a page where you can make a self-created account. Okay. Now I have an account already, so I'm going to click up here on the login link. This is for any account which is either manual or self. Okay, so I've clicked here, and I've already typed in my username and password, and I'm ready to log in. Now, if I don't use those, in other words, if I use the Google login, or as we mentioned, we have the Live at EDU, and then this one is the upcoming One Ring login, I don't want to click in here. I want to click on Google instead. We'll show you that in a second. If I click here and I type in my Google username and password, it won't work. I need to click on Google. And the directions say that. We often have students not read the directions fully, and they'll click and type in down below, and then it won't work. The reason why is that they're actually logging in the wrong way. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to log in. And now I'm logged in. Once I've done so, I have administrative privileges to go and create admin accounts. There'll only be a few people who have this. If you're a district that uses our system a lot, You can go. We'll usually have somebody on site that has the ability to do this. Otherwise, if you're just a teacher, a sole teacher at a district using our server, you can have students self-enroll, or you can give us a list and we can help you get those people enrolled. Alright, so I'm going to show you how to manually enroll a student. If I click here on Site Administration, and again, many of you won't see this, but if I go down to Users and I go down to Accounts, I can go down here to Add a New User. One of the tips I tell you is to start with browsing a list of users first. And so let's see if I am, I'm going to try to find somebody named Abraham Lincoln. So we'll click here, and we don't have anybody in our system named Abraham. It's kind of surprising, but that's okay. So since that's the case, we don't have that person in, then I can click here to add a new user. Now, if I know they're not in the system, under that menu you saw earlier, you can click in right away. Once I click on that, these are the fields that we need to add in. So you must add in a username, you must add in first name, last name, and an email address. Please put in a password. I recommend not putting in the forced password change. If you're creating a manual account, you want to, usually you do it because you want to know the students' passwords so that you can help them if they've forgotten it. So oftentimes you'll make a password according to some sort of local policy, maybe like a student ID number or a combination of an ID number and a last name or whatever the case is. Okay. After you type in the username, password, first name, surname, and email address, let's go ahead and do that. So Abraham Lincoln. We're going to type in a password, and I can click here to see that password. Now the email address is something that you need to type it in. It does not have to be an actual email address. If you're using something that's not an email address, in a later video I'll show you how to turn off email access for those type of accounts. But for this one, I'm going to go ahead, send them to that one there. That's all you need to put in. A lot of people put in the city or town there, but that's not a required field. And you click Create User at the end. Okay. Now Honest Abe shows up. Okay. So again, once you do a search for a person, it'll list them here. It'll say when they've accessed. If you want to go and change a password, you click on Edit. Note in Moodle you cannot see their old password. You can only reset it. So if someone has lost their password, all I can do is reset it to a new one. All right. Now let's take a look at that in action. Let's go to a different browser. I've given Honest Abe his credentials, so I'm going to click on Login. And you can see here again, you can type in either the username that was set up or that email that was put in. And I put Abraham Lincoln. And then his password was Honest Abe. And log in. Okay? So that's a manual login. They've gone and they've created a manual login there. Okay. Now, let me log out for a second and show you the self-login process. It's really the same, only the student would do this, would do what we just did. Again, if they click here, we'll take them to the sign-up page. See, they have to type in a username and a password. They have to type in an email address and verify it, and the first and last name. One of the things we do to try to stop spam is we add a CAPTCHA in. So they'll have to type in the number that'll appear here. And CAPTCHAs sometimes change the way they format things, so it might be a word in a few months or what have you. But right now it's been numbers like this. If a person's having difficulty with CAPTCHAs, they can click here to get another one, or it does have an audio CAPTCHA feature. And then they would click to create the new account. Okay, so that is a look at manual enrollments and self-enrollments. The third one is Google Enrollment. So let's go to a different browser and we'll take a look at that. I mentioned that you can click on the Google logo. You can click on it here, or if you accidentally click here to log in, you'll see that Google logo again. Either one takes you to the same spot. If you're not logged in on your Google computer, it will bring you up to have you log in to Google. Okay? This is important because if you are logged in already, it'll go straight in. We'll show you that in a second. All right. So I'm going to log in as this bacon unicorn fellow and type in his password. Once I've done so, it takes them right back in and has them log in. If it's the very first time that account has logged into the server, there is an extra screen that is it's a permission-seeking screen that Google often uses, saying, hey, this Moodle site wants to use your username and your password. Will you allow it? And they say, they click the accept button, and then it takes them in. Okay? So all three of those are different ways of authenticating, but they're all different accounts. So if you have a student self-enroll and you create an account for them, those are two different accounts now that student has. And then if they were to log in with Google, that would be a third. One of the things that is an issue is that there can only be one instance of that email address in our server. So if a student has let's say that they were at chicago.k12.ia.us, if we had a city called Chicago in the state, okay? And it was a Lincoln at chicago.k12.ia.us. And I created a manual account for that student, and I put that email address in, okay? And then they go and they say, oh, wait a second, we've got a Google account. I'll just log in with Google. And they do so. And Google uses the same password as the one we just set up. Moodle doesn't like that. Moodle will say you can't log in. And the reason why is because that email has already been entered in the system. To fix that, I have to either go and delete the old account if there's nothing that account has done, or I'll have to change that old account's email address. And then we'll have the two different accounts going on. All right. Now we're ready to look at enrollments. And I'm going to go back to my course where I'm in as an instructor. And I'm going to go into a dummy course here. Got one that I've created right here. Okay, obviously not ready for prime time, but we're looking at how to enroll into this course. Once I've clicked here, as a teacher, you can set up your own enrollments. You can't set up your own authentication usually, but you can set up your own enrollments, and you can do all the manual enrollments. So if I go under Course Administration, and if I'm a teacher, I'll see these type of features here. And if I go under Users, there's a link that says Enrolled Users that tells me who's in the class. And there's also one called Enrollment Methods. And we'll say what the different types are there. But I want to click on the one that says Enrollment Methods. Okay. We have actually three different types of common enrollment methods. We'll take a look at this third one, guest access, as well, because that's one that often you use for parents or somebody else to come in. All right, we're going to take a look at this guest access here in a little bit. Let me actually go and hide the guest access. That'll turn that off so that people can't access as a guest. But I do want to show you what happens now as a student tries to go in and self-enroll. So we're going to go back to Honest Abe, and person is here. So Abe's going to go in, he's going to click here. He's going to try to click on the course. And you can see here it says you cannot enroll yourself in this course. So self-enrollment's not set up, can't do it. Okay. Now if we change that, we go in here and unhide it. We also want to click here, and I'll show you why. This is where you can go in and add some information. Really, the only one you need to worry about is this one, and maybe the group enrollment keys if you're going to use group enrollment, which we'll look at in the next video. But so an enrollment key is a password that you use to set up, and oftentimes a lot of people use our course request manager, set that up right away. I'm going to put a password in here. This is a course. We'll call it practice course. So our enrollment key is practice. And click save. If they don't type that in, they don't have to enter anything. Once they click on it, they'll be able to go in. So now it's up and it's open. I go back to here and I back out. Let's take a look at it again. So now if I click on it as a student, now you see what happens. It's going to ask me for that enrollment key. If I type in practice, make sure I spelled that right, and I did. Click enroll me. Voila, now I'm into the course. So if we go in as our teacher, and I go back to enrolled users, I'm going to see Abraham Lincoln now show up in our class. All right. Now, I'm going to take him out again. Okay. And this time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to have him log in as, I'm going to take this other one out too. I'm going to have the other student log in, but I'm going to manually enroll them. Okay, so this is the part where I want to add in students myself instead of having them enroll themselves. To do that, I click Enroll Users here. Some people ask, why is it spelled that way? It's spelled that way because Enroll was created in, or Moodle was created in Australia originally, and that's how they spell it. We do have a separate American English language pack that you can turn on locally if you'd like, and I don't have that turned on at the moment, so I see the different enroll. Okay, so now I want to find that Zach Abbey character. I'm going to search for him, and then his information comes up. Okay, so I can enroll him as different things depending on my permission level. As a teacher, you won't be able to do manager or a fellow teacher. But you could put him in as a non-editing teacher if you had a fellow teacher you wanted in your course. I'm going to click on student, and I'm going to go ahead and enroll that person in. Okay. So now I've just manually enrolled that one in. I'm going to enroll Abe as well. You can see you can type in as much as you'd like, and all the hits would come up. So we'll type in enroll Lincoln as well. Okay, so now I'm starting to add in my class. You can see it'll take a little bit of time, but you can go in and do that. Now, if I go in as Abe here, click on this one, I can click on this course, and it'll take me in without asking me to enroll in the class. And obviously that person has to have an account set up before they do this. You have to already be authenticated. That can be a common issue if you want to you put students in and they don't have an account yet. You can't do that. So self-enrollment allows them, if they create their own account and then go in and enroll, then they're all set. One last thing, you noticed how many clicks it took to get in there. And this is actually not too big of an issue. Like one of our schools, Sheraton, they use our site quite a bit. So it took one click to get in here, another to get in here to Sheraton, then into the high school. It might take 4 clicks, and then there's a lot of courses to find. Okay, here's an easier way of doing that. Okay, there's this box right over here that says Go to Course, where you can type in a course number. And so what I want to do is I can go and I can say, hey everybody, we're going to go to our course. And to get that course number, I'm going to go into my course. I'm going to look up here in the URL. It's right there after ID. ID equals 1167. Okay? So if I have the students type in for Go to Course 1167 and then click the Open Course button, it goes straight there, no worries, no clicks. You can even use it if you want them to enroll. So let's see, let's check that one out. Let's unenroll this student here. And then let's have them manually enroll into the class. 1167. Takes them there, but they're not enrolled. This would be the first time, so they'll have to type in that enrollment key. And you click enrollment. So as a teacher, one of the easiest ways to get students in the class is if you have them in front of you, say, okay, number 1, go to moodle.aea-k-12online.org. 2, log in. 3, over on the left, type in this number, whatever the course number is, and then 4, type in this enrollment key, and then they would be in. And that usually is a pretty quick process. All right, that's a look at authentication and enrollment. I did say I wanted to show you guest access as well, and let's take a look at that. I'm going to log out of the system in this account, and then I'm going to turn my guest access on. So I'm going to go back under enrollment methods, If you have guest access on, you have a choice, and I'll show you this in a second, so I made that active. If I go here under the course administration, I go down to edit settings, I go into my settings for the course, there's an area called guest access. This has to be turned on in order for it to work. And then you can also put in a password if you'd like. That's an extra security. This means that like a parent doesn't have to create an account. They don't have to authenticate. But they could still get into the class. And I have that password protected so that other parents doing the same thing can't get into the class. I recommend it. We're going to try it without just so you can see the features there. Okay? So I'm going to save changes, make sure that's saved. And now it's all set up ready for guest access. So if I go here and I have my parents, I say to get to our course, type in 1167 and click Open Course. You note down here as I'm trying to get in, it says some courses may allow guest access, log in as a guest. They have to do that, otherwise it's asking them to log in. So they'll click that and then voila, they're in. Okay? You can see they're up here as guest access. They can access things that guests can do. Now here's the thing, they cannot participate in the class, which for parents is not a problem. So they cannot create forums, they cannot create, they cannot do quizzes, those type of things. If they were to try, it'll give them an error message. So if they go here to the quiz, it says sorry, guests cannot do that. Would you like to try to log in with your user account? So that's one piece of knowledge for parents if they accidentally click on something like this because they wanted to see it and Moodle's not going to let them, and so they might not know what it means when it says you want to log in for that. Alright, so we looked at authenticating with manual, self-enroll or self-authenticated, and Google authentication, and we looked at manual enrollment, self-enrollment, and then the guest enrollment. And so a lot of different things. Hopefully this video kind of simplified some of that for you. Again, Evan for AEA PD Online, thanks for using us.